Hello, and welcome to the Lighten Up Podcast with Lauren Polly, your invitation for living on the lighter side of life. Welcome to today's episode, which is number 248 of the Lighten Up Podcast. And more importantly, it is episode number 5 in our Resiliency Roadmap series. This series is all about entrepreneurial well-being, where your mental health and your creativity come together to create a unique success spot for yourself. We're really talking about how to build the foundation of resiliency in ourselves and our bodies and how we function day to day as an entrepreneur. And from there, that's really where creativity and authenticity in our business can flourish. It is a much needed conversation. Especially today's conversation. Today, we're going to dive into self-care in leadership and why it is so vital. And I want to hit some kind of myths about it. And crazy making, I would say, how so many entrepreneurs actually don't take care of themselves, even those in the health industry. I was working with a yoga teacher on building her business, and she was very, very stressed out. She had a lot of one-to-one clients, and she was teaching classes nonstop to try to make ends meet. Unfortunately, they don't get paid very well when they're in the basic class format. I know, I'm a yoga teacher myself. I've done that for years. You have to kind of teach a lot to be able to make bank if that's what you're wanting, if you don't get creative with it. And it was so funny because we were talking about, well, what's your own self-care routine like? What's your own practice like? And she's like, Lauren, I actually don't have time to practice for myself because I'm constantly on the mat with other people. And I thought that was so fascinating because not only is it a lack of self-care, it's really a lack of doing the thing that you love to do so much that it brought you into a business to do it with other people. And so many of us do that, where we get drawn into business, to entrepreneurship, because we found something that we love and we want to share it with others. And unfortunately, sometimes we get so outwardly focused, fulfilling and servicing and farming for clients and servicing the ones that we have, that we don't have time to actually do the thing that made us fall in love with it in the first place. And so it's a fascinating thing to really look at this self-care conversation about why it's really needed and why filling your own cup up with the thing that you love is so important to do, not just before you start on the journey, but every step of the way, because it will continue to inform your journey as you move forward. So today we're digging into that concept. We're going to hit some big myths and hopefully bust them open so you actually feel good about taking time for yourself and why that is important and making it a priority. We're also going to talk a little bit about leadership and how some entrepreneurs don't think of themselves as leaders, even though you're leading your own business, and why that in of itself is important with this self-care conversation. Again, this whole series is based off of my brand new ebook called The Resiliency Roadmap for Entrepreneurial Wellbeing. It is free to download, and the download button is in the show notes. So go ahead and grab your free copy there. It goes into more depth, and it has a lot of self-guided tools to take you deeper into the journey than the podcast does. So I'm just excited to kind of dive into this. We've had multiple conversations thus far. Last week, we talked a lot about the mind and the body connection and why bringing your physical health with your mental health together is really an entrepreneurial edge. People who do that do better, not just in their business, but in their own well-being journey. And it leads to a lot easier life if everything is humming and drumming and healthy, right? So today is kind of an extension of that talk, really looking at self-care in leadership roles. So maybe let's start with leadership. Take a beat for a second, take a breath, and ask yourself, are you a leader? And some of you may not identify with that term because you have a perspective or a definition of what a leader is. Maybe a leader is a CEO with a lot of employees and you're a solopreneur. Maybe a leader is someone who's more businessy, and because you're in a health, wellness, healing space, you don't think of yourself as that. Maybe a leader is a thought leader like we see on social media who has thousands of followers and has been on Oprah and has talked about all this stuff. And here you are with your email list of 300 people. You know what I mean? So you don't think of yourself as a leader because you haven't reached that pinnacle yet. These are all mind traps that we go into. And when we don't acknowledge ourselves as the leader of our life, as the leader of our business, we never really push into the power that we have. We also don't actually take a lot of steps that we probably would practically to succeed. If you're just thinking you've got a sweet little business like I did for years, you may not be making practical decisions for profit. And that's something that's really required if you're wanting your business to be sustainable and to grow into the future. You may not be looking at how to scale up or how to diversify if you're not thinking of yourself as a leader, which again may hurt you in the long run. So I invite you, number one, this week to really challenge your perspective. What is a leader in your mind? What would look different in your business if you thought of yourself as a leader? Maybe what would you need to accomplish to actually feel like that? And then I want you to challenge your perspective. Really look at, is that actually true? Do you need those things in order to feel like a leader in your vision? And for me, I think you probably have heard my story by now, but I never really thought I had a business. And it wasn't because I wasn't doing business, quote unquote. I wasn't offering services and having money come my way. It was just because I was doing things that I loved. And I found self-care and deliciousness in it. I found I had a unique voice with it, and I really wanted to share. So I started to do that. And before I knew it, I had something that other people would look at and go, oh, you have a business. You're an entrepreneur. And my response was always, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not an entrepreneur. So I think some of us kind of fall backwards into this because we're doing what we love. And again, because of that, we don't identify with this idea of leading a business. So maybe put your big girl pants on for a second and see if you can mature into being a leader and what impact that could have with your vision for the world. Even if it's not a big, grand, thought leadership, million of follower vision. What if it was a vision for how you wanted to live, how you wanted to express yourself, how you wanted your money to come your way, how you wanted your lifestyle to be, and the impact you wanted to have on your community, whatever that looked like, whether if it's a global community or something brick and mortar or a close-knit one, who knows? That's the beauty of this, is it can look different for all of us, but it's also available for all of us. So taking a second to really see what you want and to claim that and to claim leadership of that will help with that journey. It's going to be very difficult to have self-care and to take care of yourself if you're not seeing yourself and what you're creating clearly. And like for me, a good example was my book. I was really interested in sharing my story. I knew it would help people. I had multiple coaching clients throughout the years tell me you should write a book. And I want to hear more about your story because every time you talk about it, I feel freer with what I'm going through. So it was a creative impulse, yes, and I had some demand for it, yes. But even through my writing, even through my launching, even after bestseller status, even after book awards, even after Target started to sell it, I still kind of had this thing of, oh, it was just this sweet little pet project. And it has a very sweet energy, but it actually has a very big energy to it. And it's brought a lot of people relief, and it's opened a lot of doors to a lot of people, and it's ruffled some feathers. That happens too. And that last part, that's what got me. Because in my mind, not claiming my leadership and the vision I was going for, I had a hard time taking care of myself when I reached that stage where I started to ruffle feathers. I didn't claim myself as a leader of a vision of what I wanted out of it and how it may impact the world around me to the degree. And when I started to reach that level, when you get enough publicity, that's what happened. It's not all sunshine and roses because it goes beyond family, friends, immediate circle and starts to touch other people. Taking care of yourself when you're not claiming that gets very difficult. I know from personal experience. So I had to kind of have a big girl pants moment with myself of, I am actually leading a vision here. I do have a business. I am an entrepreneur. And if I started looking at it that way, how differently would I present myself to the world? What other practical decisions would I be making that actually led to more ease with growing and scaling and diversifying? Being kind enough to let my book be more visible so more people could see it, all those things. And like I said, it runs into an interesting thing where you reach a certain level because you haven't claimed leadership, taking care of yourself gets really hard. So that's where I would like you to start. And it may ruffle your feathers a little, it may poke your edges a bit if you don't really see yourself that way. But if you could claim that, this next part of the conversation will be way easier. Because if you do have a vision, if you have a leadership thing that you are out in the world doing, if you are actually in business, you're not just in side project, oh, this is so sweet, I'm just going to do that, or it's nice to do a healing session every now and then. But if you actually have that in your bank that, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, being able to then step into choices day to day to day to help you take care of yourself in that journey becomes easier. You can't really claim it if you haven't done it, you know? So what a lot of people hit, they've claimed themselves as leader. They know they're an entrepreneur. They know they're moving forward. And yet, like we talked about with that sweet yoga teacher, they get so busy with all the things they have to do to succeed when they're making those choices that before you know it, they fall out of taking care of themselves and the thing that they love to do in the first place. A lot of people hit this moment where they find it selfish. They actually think that they may be selfish in taking care of themselves. I just want to put that out there. We don't need to talk a lot about it, but if that's something that comes up for you, that if you are going to take time for you or your own passion, maybe instead of writing your blog that's making you money, you want to spend time writing poetry. That's what I do. That's how I started writing my book, was I started writing poetry like I did when I was little. And it led into that. It's a creative outlet for me. And to write poetically about the hikes and the nature that I was seeing filled my cup in a different way. But it was something that fell by the wayside, and it felt kind of indulgent and selfish after a while when I had so many other things I was supposed to be writing. So be very clear about where you are letting the passion part of it, the creative part of it, fall away because you don't have time for it or because it feels indulgent or selfish at this point, right? All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. 3 things I want you to just to keep in mind when we're talking about self-care in leadership and how you may be able to integrate it a little bit more now that you've claimed leadership and ownership and accountability. And now that you know that it's not selfish or indulgent to carry forward what made you fall in love with this in the first place, that's needed, right? So number 1, you need to know your limits. And so many of these conversations, again, we've talked on other episodes, the draw for entrepreneurship is because we're free. We have so much more freedom. Absolutely. And a lot of the conversations I hear from a lot of different thought leaders is that you are limitless. You can just do all the things. Absolutely, you can do anything you want, but you may have limits to how much at different points in your life. You need to really know for yourself. And in my experience, the only way you find that out is by experimenting. How many things can you add to your plate before you let a plate drop? How many plates did you add before you started getting cranky is probably an even better question to ask, right? That's a limit. Watching when you do hit frustration, when you hit anger, when you hit resentment, when those things start to come up, really get clear. What is it that's causing that? I know I'm past my limit because I'm experiencing this emotion. What was the trigger, or what could I have done differently? You need to really have a good awareness of that. For me, I need downtime. I also need wandering time. I call it to wonder and to wander. I need my time to daydream and my time to actually fill my tank creatively that way. And I need a lot of space where I'm not overly scheduled, where I can go and do this fun thing or go be by myself or just kind of make a freedom, spontaneous choice in the moment. I really need that. And so for me, a big trigger and a limit that I hit is when I'm overly scheduled. I had too many things on my plate. Did I get them all done? Absolutely. I always will. Did I do it with joy, with ease? Mm-mm. Cranky, resentful, a little angry at it. Okay, too much. And some days you can't help that. Some days in business, everything hits at once. You've got multiple projects happening. You have an opening. you know, when I was doing my first published blog on Maria Shriver's website, actually, it was a last minute deadline. I came home from a work shift at the hospital at like 5, and I had an email from my PR agent said, they want you to write an article, but it has to be done by tomorrow. And I went, oh my God, I'm so tired. And I need to do this. Like, it was a window that opened. I took a beat for myself. I exercised. I did a meditation. I had a good dinner, and then I got to work. So I feel like sometimes those things in the entrepreneur journey happen where it's just, here's the opening I've been waiting for. You got to just jump for it. But how do you work with yourself in the moment and on the course of your life so that every single day isn't like that? Know your limits, right? Along with that line, I want you to start looking at redefining your productivity. Hustle culture is out there, and for some reason we think we are supposed to do all the things all the time, everywhere. And sometimes we don't feel like we're productive when we haven't done anything, or we haven't hit the good old publish button, right? I didn't do a video today. I didn't post. I didn't do this. Because you didn't hit the final publish button, nothing really happened. And that's such a lie, because as an entrepreneur, your life, your well-being, your creativity, your business, they are all on the path together. So just because you're not doing something quote unquote productive does not mean that you aren't actually creating something. So you really have to redefine that. When you are having more of this sense of ease, you're out playing for a day, you may go out playing with your friend and be like, oh, wow, I have a creative idea. May not have done that if you were sitting in front of the computer. You need to be able to mix it up a little bit, right? Redefine productivity and where you are past productivity because you've gone to cranky mode, like we talked about in point number 1. Last thing to really be aware of, this is a big one, is to really look at transitions. As we've talked about, entrepreneurs have tons of different hats that they're wearing constantly, and you're bouncing back and forth. A lot of times you're working from home, you have family around, you're going from entrepreneur to this, to servicewoman, to mom, you're back and you're forth. And we never give ourselves enough transition, downtime before we take one hat off and put the other one on. It's really key for that work-life balance to know what's personal and what is business, and having kind of buffers in between. Any kind of little ritual you want to do, like when I get home from the hospital, I like to take a shower and wash off the day, wash off the patients, and then put my hat on for fun stuff. Whatever you can do to actually look at practically and really, really, really like step by step what you could do just to add a little bit of space so that you know this hat's coming off. Here's my next hat that I'm putting on. It actually helps a lot in just, again, reconnecting to yourself. So know your limits, start redefining the productivity standards that you have in your own head or what society is constantly bombarding you with, especially on Instagram. Just beware. There's a lot of that out there. And then really looking at those transition spots too, acknowledging you're wearing lots of different hats. A lot of them are happening all at once. And what you can do when you really do need a clean transition and a clean break. So you are a leader. You are not selfish for going into that creative mode and really spending time and developing the thing that you love that brought you into business. Don't let that go away. And then think about these 3 points to actually take care of yourself along that journey. I hope this conversation was impactful for you. It's a big topic. This one may be a little triggering. I know for me, it took a lot of years to really get behind me being a leader and even me having a business and learning how to take care of myself along the way. It's really what's led to this conversation. I just realized there's more people like me out there. And I'm hoping these conversations are opening space up for you as well. Go ahead and grab your free ebook copy if you haven't already. The link to do that is in the show notes. And I will chat with you next week where we'll continue this conversation.